Hey everyone, it's Simone Watson, and today I want to talk about a query writing method that I like to call the Pendulum Method. This is not the only way to write a query letter, and when I talk about this, I'm talking about your query blurb, so the part where you describe the story. You also need a metadata paragraph, a you need like a bio, and the some people will talk about needing a hook, but I think that's optional. But I'm talking about specifically the part where you talk about your story. And if you want me to talk about the other parts of a query letter, I can do that in a later video. So yeah, your query blurb. I have this method for everything other than romance novels, and then I have a different method for romance novels, and I'll show you that at the end. But the Pendulum Method, like I said, it's not the only way you can write your query. It's just that I've read a lot of queries in my lifetime and kind of noticed some things about the ones that caught my attention the most, the ones that I um kind of really the ones that made me want to read on and things like that, because I used to be an acquisitions editor. I read a lot of queries. So, um I just took the elements that to me seemed to work the best and kind of distilled them into this method. And so so it's something that just might work for you. And so I thought I would show you how to do it. Okay. So the idea with the pendulum method is that every time something in your story happens to your main character, also known as the protagonist, that is a pendulum swinging toward them. And every time they do something in response, that's the pendulum swinging away from them. And so the idea with the pendulum method is that you want to have about 4.5 swings. You want to end in the middle of the fifth swing. This is for a couple reasons. Number one, because you could correspond these things to plot beats in your story. Number two, because when you end in the middle of the fifth swing, you're going to be able to establish a goal and stakes. And three, you want to do this so that your query feels like it's moving. And this also could be a book blurb. Okay, like if you're making a book blurb for like the back cover or something, you might be able to use this method also. But you want to feel like it's moving. You don't want to feel like you're staying in one spot, is in the sense of like you're just describing stuff for a long time without anything actually happening. You want to kind of feel like the plot is moving. If your story is more character driven and the plot doesn't move as much, then my hope is that you can still use this method, but the movements will be a little bit smaller, if that makes sense. Like it'll be a change in maybe the character relationships or the character's feelings instead of the actual plot. So let's look at the pendulum method, which is on my screen, of course. So first you want to establish equilibrium. So that means when your pendulum is not swinging. And this is the setup of the story. One thing I really want to note to you about the equilibrium is it should usually, in my opinion, be 1 to 2 sentences. So I'm actually going to put that here. Maybe 3. But one mistake a lot of people I think have made with their queries is having too much setup. Do not overwhelm the reader with backstory. Okay? Just enough, so that we understand where your main character is before the story starts, and if you can, like, hint at like what they want, right? So who is MC? What do they want? And if it's like a middle grade or YA and maybe even younger, you might want to say the character's age. If it's an adult novel, you may not really have to do that, but just, who's your character, make a little description. Okay. Then you have your second swing. I'm sorry, your first swing toward the character, which is the inciting incident. Um, yeah, so this is one, like I said, you could definitely make this correspond with a plot beat, your inciting incident. So what is the thing that happens that kicks off the story? Some people call it a catalyst instead of inciting incident. Then you have swing 2 away from the character, which is your break into 2 or your character's first decision. In other words, how does your character respond to the inciting incident? What do they decide to do? Then you have swing 3, which is toward the character, and that's going to be an obstacle that comes, an obstacle that they face as they are carrying out whatever their plan was from swing 2. Okay? Then you have swing 4, which is the character making a decision again. Now, there are two possible ways this could go in general. One is that your character tried doing one thing. It didn't work. This obstacle happened, this reversal happened, and now they're going to change their plan and do something different. But another way it could happen is this obstacle came, and instead of doing a new plan, they have new resolve. Sorry, instead of changing their plan, they have new resolve for the plan that they're still doing, right? But you're going to want to note this, that after this obstacle happened, they have new resolve. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. Then you have your 5th swing, and like I said, we're going to end in the middle of this swing. So here, I think you would say that this reversal was kind of like a pinch point, that like what some people call a pinch point. Your 5th swing is kind of like we're approaching the midpoint of the story. I think often we're going to be approaching the midpoint of the story. So what you're doing is you are hinting that more obstacles are coming, or that a new obstacle is coming. There's a new thing that your main character might have to face, but we don't know how they're going to respond to it. But you're just hinting that like something is coming toward them. Okay, there's a new obstacle coming. And so we need to know what the character must do, not what they will do. Okay, so we need to know what their goal is. And I'm not saying must do as something super specific. Like it could be a general, she must defeat so and so, the antagonist, or risk blah 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 blah. But here you really want to establish stakes, and you really want your reader to kind of come away from it being like, oh no, I wonder what they're going to do in the face of this obstacle. Okay, so I have also written this in like a little bit of like a Mad Lib form, or I guess you could call it like a formula, right? So yeah, you can make all of these swings and then kind of put them into this format. I like to have, like here, have a hint at your character's rationale before swing 2. And then this, where it says things go well until, you could also say this is the like change in the status quo or something. Or like this is how things go after the first decision. So we would say like effects of first decision. Because it might not be things going well, but we just want to have a little hint at that, but it doesn't need a whole sentence. It might, but have this little hint of like what happens after the first decision, and then how the new swing changes things. So I have made an example here. Wait. Oops, sorry. My example is going to be labeled example 2, even though there's no example 1. No, it's going to be labeled example. I'm sorry. That's a mistake there. Let's just call this 1. This is an adult women's fiction. Okay. So here we have our character. Ruth Seaver is a successful family lawyer living in San Francisco when her husband is killed in a freak accident along with his father and brother, which is swing 1. Ruth's world falls apart. So here we're talking about how she's feeling. We're talking about her rationale. So we had our setup. Sorry, I forgot to tell you this is setup. Equilibrium. Okay, so that was swing 1. Then we had to tell you how Ruth is feeling. And then how her mother-in-law decides to move. Okay, so Ruth says, I'm going to move with you. So here we've hinted at Ruth's rationale. She doesn't want Naomi to be alone, and she agrees to move to Elvenbrook. So that's swing 2. Then Ruth starts practicing law. So this is like our how things change. This is the effect of swing 2. Then she befriends this guy named Bo, this farmer, and this stuff happens. So you could say kind of this whole thing is the effect of swing 2, or like the transition to swing 3. And then Ruth is asked to represent Bo in court. So this is your swing 3. Yeah. And then she agrees to do it, which is swing 4. Here I have a hint at her having feelings for Bo, simply because this is a retelling of the biblical book of Ruth. So that's like, if you know how the book of Ruth ends, then you kind of understand. But of course, this is something that could change. You could have this not have a romantic subplot, you could have et cetera, et cetera. But the idea here is she has feelings for this guy, but she's representing him in court, and they're not really supposed to be together. She's representing him, but now she's trying to, win this case. And so here we're establishing what she must do. We are establishing her goal at the end. This one, depending on where you start your story, and you always want to be, kind of mindful of where you start your story, you could change this to where the story actually starts after Ruth's husband has died. So you could say, like, she's been living here, and this is her equilibrium. Her husband died before the start of the story. Her equilibrium is living here with Naomi, and then they decide to move. And so this is like your alternate version of paragraph 1. And then we have our romance query formula, which I'm going to show you pretty quickly because I have a real world example here. So the romance query formula looks like this. Character A is set up goals and stakes. So you describe character A, tell what they want and what's at stake. Character B is set up goals and stakes. So you describe what they want and what's at stake. Then you talk about how the two characters come together. So they're inciting incident. And then you talk about some feelings and some conflict. And then you put what would be swing 4.5, which is your hint at an obstacle. You establish kind of like a goal and stakes. So if they don't do something, they'll lose, blah. And usually in this, the relationship itself is like a part of the stakes, right? So they must choose between like being together or blah 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 blah. That's like that's what's at stake in a romance, because that's how romance novels are, right? So here I just went to this Goodreads blurb because I feel like this particular Goodreads blurb is a great example of that format. Okay, so you have this, you describe character A. Oh yeah, and this one has a hook, so that's cute. Okay, you describe character A, Paige Parker, her goal, her stakes. She wants to be single, and this is what's going on. And the person who wrote this blurb did something cool in that they did a parallel. They wrote this in like a similar format to this paragraph, so there's a little parallel. And then they have this paragraph about how they come together. So you could have like when they come together, that's like their new paragraph, like that. And then it kind of has this brief, hint at the stakes, right? It's like they need to survive the week together, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, that's your example. And so anytime you do a query, after you have your blurb, you're going to have, like I said, your metadata. I think I put that here. Yeah, your metadata is going to look like this. So you tell a little bit about the story, what the genre is, word count, et cetera, your bio paragraph, and you might want to hook at the beginning, but I don't think you have to have a hook. I don't think it is a requirement. If y'all want me to talk about having a hook, I can, but just let me know, and I'll talk about that in a different video. So, I hope that this was helpful to you as you get started writing a query. I do think that even when you use this formula, you can break rules, you can change things. It might not, this exact formula might not work for every story. You may have to kind of change it up in order to have like what works for your specific story. And also, you're going to want to put a little bit of voice in this after you write it. You're going to want to kind of pay attention to what the voice of your manuscript. I mean, I shouldn't say pay attention because you know what the voice of your manuscript is because you wrote it. So you're going to want to kind of inject that voice into your query letter because query letters have voice. Synopses don't. But okay, that's a different topic. But anyway, if y'all want me to give you more examples, especially because after writing this example for the main pendulum method, I realized that it's kind of morbid and sad. And I'm sorry, I don't want to call it morbid because I realize it's kind of sad. And so if you want more examples, let me know and I'll just make another video and show you some more examples. But yeah. Sorry, I need to start over that part. Okay. So, as I said, after you write your blurb, you're going to need some metadata, so like word count, genre, etc. Sometimes people say put that at the beginning, sometimes they say put that at the end, just depends. And some people want you to do a hook, and you need your bio. If you want me to talk about these other elements, let me know, and I can. I don't think you have to have a hook. I think it's cool, but I don't think you have to in the sense of like a tagline. But you could make your first sentence really interesting, and then it would be kind of like a hook. You know what I mean, everything should be interesting, but you know what I'm saying? You can make it like a really attention grabbing sentence, and then it would act like your hook. Please let me know if you want me to do more examples of this also, because I realize now that my earlier example is going to need a trigger warning because it was sad. And so, yeah, I need to probably make another video with more examples. But also, please let me know if you have any questions. And thank you for watching. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.